Uh, Welcome back, y'all. We're here for another episode of Doc Talk. We have our brother, Dr. Lester, is conspicuous by his absence. You know, he was celebrating his birthday and things just went too well. And now he ain't made it in. What can we do? But I got some brothers here to keep us company and talk to us a bit. As y'all know, I am Dr. Jamaal Fortner from Houston, Texas. I'm going to go around the room and let these brothers kind of let you know who they are. So, Dr. Aikins, you want to give it to them? Let them get started.
Jamarri Aikins. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm currently operating out of Omaha, Nebraska, but originally from Texas. I work with. What was that motion?
That's the testimony hand right there. Texas.
Got you. So yeah, working out of Omaha, Nebraska. Again, I'm a psychologist working with kids somewhere between 8 and 18 years old. I've been here in Omaha going on 3 years now. Enjoying it for the most part, but definitely missing Texas.
I got you. You know, those Cornhuskers. Is that Nebraska? Yeah, the Cornhuskers. I got you. They'll get you. That's how it happened to you. Right. All right. Thank you for being with us, Brother Moore.
Come on. Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Felix Moore. I am in Denver, Colorado. But I don't know if y'all can tell by the accent, I am not from Colorado. I am very much Southern, from the great state of Mississippi. But I went to college in Alabama, Roll Tide. But I am a lead social worker for the Arapahoe County Department of Human Services here in Colorado. And so I work with families and children and trying to keep them safe the best I can. So.
All right. Keep saving them out there. Keep that cape on. Don't look at them so the people can see the cape waving. No, bro, Emmanuel Paul's in the house. Introduce yourself to the people. Let them know where you're from.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Emmanuel Paul. I'm originally from Long Beach, California. I live here in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am a nationally certified counselor, and I'm working towards licensure as an LPC within the state of Louisiana. I currently work as a school counselor as well as a mental health professional in private practice.
Awesome. I'm really happy to have these brothers here with me tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit about the state of the Black man. These last few weeks in our nation have been particularly depressing. Call it what it is. It's been depressing. I mean, one thing we see is that as Black men, we're often prejudged based on a series of misconceptions, and as a result, we've had some very perilous outcomes. Watching George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, all these things, and as Black men, Black professionals, we want to begin to ask these questions like, what do we need to do to make our situation in America better? But also, we understand that you have to understand where we're coming from. So I want to just kind of kick off this discussion by asking you brothers, what experiences would you say are unique to Black men in America?
I think for me, one of the things that I found in speaking with more and more Black men, there's this constant kind of inner dialogue when you are out in public about like, am I coming across a certain way? Are people judging me? Is what I'm doing right now something that's going to be looked at or interpreted a certain way? And so I can't just go out and just be confident in how I show up and what I do. There's this constant process of checking in with myself, checking in with my behaviors, checking in with my words, checking in with my actions to make sure that I'm not doing anything that could be misconstrued as either overly aggressive or criminal. And I think that's something for me that I'm working on myself, and I'm just working on showing up and saying, if they interpret my behavior a certain way, that's on them, that's not on me. Like, I'm showing up and I'm being Jamarri, right? But it's taken 32 years for me to get there, one of my earliest memories of my childhood was going into a grocery store in Dallas, Texas. I was, 7 or 8 years old. And, it was me and my brothers and my sister, and the attendant there told us that, hey, we couldn't be in there in a group. And we hadn't done anything, right? And I just remember that thought, like just my presence is something that people look at as suspicious. And to have that thought constantly playing out in your mind is something that is just, it's depressing to even think about. But it also, I don't know, it kind of affects how you even show up in public. And for me, I think that's just kind of unique to us just because of what we see on the news and kind of how people respond to it, is that we have to constantly check what we're doing to make sure that it's going to be acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think just to kind of go along with those lines, like being here in Colorado, obviously there's not a lot of us, and particularly the area where I live and serve. And so when I go into some of the outlying communities that are not necessarily Metro Denver, I drive a nice truck. Obviously, I have to dress nice because if I don't, then now I look like I fit the description, right? And so, going into those homes, having been called, like, why did they send a black social worker, or I remember one incident where I arrived at a home maybe 10 minutes earlier than the family did. It was a Caucasian family. So I'm sitting across the street from the house, and the sheriff circled the block 5, 6 times before the family showed up, and each time slowed down as he got to my truck. And so just being aware in those spaces, and even within the department itself, I am literally the only black man in my department. And so when I am advocating to them, I'm complaining. And so it's like, well, do I say something about this, or do I just stay quiet? Because if my counterpart has the same complaint, they will form a committee and let's see how we can fix this. But Felix is complaining. And so I think, like Brother Jamarri said, it's just like being aware of your space. And for me, being country and loud, my voice booms. And so for me, it's like, am I talking too loud? And also being raised by my grandparents, it's just I'm bottom line. Like A is A, B is B. And what I found is a lot of people, particularly in this area where I work at, they don't like it being just A and B. You have to be nice and bunnies and roses and the tulips, and so it's just like being aware, like, okay, did I say that in a way that they're not going to call my supervisor and say, well, Felix talked to us in a condescending manner when actually I really was just telling you the truth.
Understood. Brother Paul, what you got for us?
Definitely adding on to what Dr. Atkins and Brother Moore said as far as navigating your interactions with others. Definitely one thing I was thinking as far as a question was just some level of discrimination and prejudice, whether it be blatant microaggressions or, racism at an institutional level. Adding on to what Brother Moore was saying, definitely, within our roles, as practitioners, that's often advocating, but then, like being very meticulous as far as what we're saying, how we say it, and then in a lot of instances, being the only Black man in the room. So I can definitely relate to that.
I think oftentimes it can be so difficult for us as Black men because and I always say this, like, I tell people in a heartbeat, like, don't get me wrong, I love being Black, but I'm tired of being Black. I would like to walk out one day and just be me and not really have to think about all the things that are going on, in the sense of, I would like to go to my grocery store and buy watermelon and not go, I bet you're judging me because I just picked this watermelon up.
Yeah.
Now I gotta go to Walmart at 1 a.m. when nobody else is in the store to buy watermelon. I don't want to be judged for my grocery store purchase.
Yeah.
Like,
literally 2 weeks ago, I went into the Walmart in my neighborhood with an NAACP shirt on. And one of the employees followed me around Walmart, whispering under his breath, I should have worn my Trump mask. And so that put me in a position like, do I address this man or do I just try to get out of this store?
Exactly. It's like there's so much societal and systemic pressure placed on Black men. And I'm always amazed when people go, yeah, I don't know why Black men are so angry.
Yeah.
We are honestly always fighting a cognitive dissonance within ourselves, because I can't just be myself, because that is not going to be acceptable to somebody. For Black people, I'm not going to be Black enough. For white people, I'm always going to be too Black. And so it's like, okay, so at what point am I okay? What point am I in a safe space where I'm not going to get shot by the police for walking to my own car? I'm not going to be tailed by the police for just driving a particular kind of car. I won't have white women grab their purses and go to the other side of the street. It's like, what? Okay, at what point what would make this better for you? And I find that it's very difficult, especially for us, because we're always registering what's happening around us, because we always have to be hyper alert. Even to our younger kids, the younger kids that I work with, I'm always like, man, you cannot do this. You can't do these things because you're this color. There is no Tyrone alert. There's an Amber alert, because they're looking for Amber. Nobody looking for Tyrone. These are the kinds of things that I feel happen in our society so often. And it's like, I feel like we struggle with societal perception probably more than any other group. I don't know if anybody else here feels that way, but I know I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to one of my earlier points about just being conscious of that and kind of checking our own behavior, I'm still kind of struggling with where is that line between me making sure that people around me feel safe and not coming across a certain way. Like to your point about like women grabbing their purse and crossing the street. Like I've often found myself kind of preemptively crossing the street before they even get a chance to, right? Just to almost communicate to them that you're okay, you're safe. But then in the back of my mind, I find myself thinking, why should I have to do that? Right? Like, why is it that I'm the one who has to cross the street when I've done nothing? And so I've had to kind of push myself to say, you just keep walking. Like even in the grocery store, I'll turn down an aisle and there's an old lady there, purse it's in her buggy, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, make sure that she sees that you are coming and that you have enough space between you and her. Right? Sometimes I'll turn down the aisle and I'll just tell myself, nope, not gonna do it today. Right? Just to not even put myself in that position, and then I have to check and say, like, why is it that like I have to do that?
Yeah.
And it's just very unfortunate.
Because the old lady was sitting on the end of the aisle. That's not fair. It's not fair to you, is what I'm saying.
Right. I got to take a long way around.
But also I think another thing is, like, when we look at things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, with safety and security being so low on the list, where it's like, if you don't get past this thing, you can't get to the next thing. Are Black men who are in these situations ever really fully able to realize their potential if you can't go anywhere and feel safe?
And I think even in the workspace, and like coming from Mississippi, and I tell people, I grew up where in our community it was just us. Only time we saw Caucasians was when we went to school or went, as we say in the country, went to town. But being in a place where you are literally the minority, and it's like, well, again, how do I show up and how am I presenting, in this space, and how can I feel that I'm being respected in what I'm saying? When we're in what we call red team and we're deciding on assigning cases, and here comes the African American family, and the example I like to use is one case is where a young Black kid went to school and told his friends, "Man, my mama beat the dog out of me." But in my mind, okay, he got a spanking. But in my counterpart, oh my God, this needs to be an immediate. Somebody needs to go right now. And I was like, y'all, he literally is saying he got a spanking. So now I have to now translate for these people who said, I'm going to save the world. They're going to put their cape on and save the world. But you're really not. You're actually traumatizing the family by sending CPS to the front door.
Definitely. I mean, I think I think in our school system, I think is one of the first places where there needs to be a lot of cultural awareness training given to these educators because you can't take 21-year-old Becky
No.
from Minnesota, from rural Minnesota, and sit her down into Houston's third
No.
and expect her to be successful as a
Not
teacher.
gonna happen.
The students don't relate to her. She doesn't relate to them, and everything they do feels like this big, attack on her. And it's that sense of, okay, did we do our part? As a system, as a school system, did you do your part in preparing this woman for what she was going to face? Let her know that when students say certain things, what they really mean versus maybe what they actually said.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think we also find ourselves, black men and even black people in general, is having to be the savior of our people, and that's a lot of pressure. I can't tell you how many times I've called families, and the first thing, particularly my African American families, and they say, "Mr. Moore, are you black?" And I, yes, I'm black. Okay, oh, you come to my house today, and so now I'm the savior of the people because they don't want Becky to knock on their door because they know it's not gonna go well if Becky knocks on.
Very similar in the therapy room too. When I call my families for the first time, they hear the name Jamarri and they automatically know that I'm black, right? So many of them have said like, I'm happy that we have you as a therapist because we know that you get us. We know that you're going to understand us. And I think that's comforting for families to have somebody who's working with them know where they're coming from and can kind of see their issues and their problems from their perspective.
I know Brother Paul is in a school setting as well. What type of response do you get as a counselor in a school setting?
Definitely adding on to that, bro. I can agree with what everyone's saying, just as far as, being that black male. So oftentimes, well, honestly, within the entire network, I'm the only black male counselor, the only male. So a lot of times the families will come in and it's like, I'll reference when I first started at the school. Come in, suit and tie. And so the little kids, they're just looking and they're like, wait, so he's not a disciplinarian? He's not going to take me for detention? And they're just looking like I'll walk back and forth into my office. And so eventually one kid asked, he was like, well, what do you do? Are you the principal? I'm like, no, I'm the counselor. You can talk to me if you have any problems or anything along those lines. And then as time progressed, they understood, wow, like this man can navigate a role, whereas, he's able to help me, where at the same time he can, level with me and understand, my music and where I'm coming from. So definitely.
I think, let me ask this though, and I mean, this one does apply to all of us, and it kind of spins off of what Dr. Aiken pointed out. Do you feel that your career trajectory would be easier or different if you were another race?
In what I do, absolutely. I would be a county director at this point. Absolutely.
That's a really interesting question to think about, because on one hand, like, I appreciate the struggle that comes with being a black male and having to work through that, and I think to a certain extent it has helped me to develop a thicker skin and be a little bit tougher and be able to deal with a lot more. And on the other hand, too, I can see, like, if I didn't have this constant narrative in my mind about how am I showing up, could I have shown up a little bit more confident in other situations if I didn't have that to think about? So it's a really, really interesting question to think about. And I don't know. I don't know if I would ever give up this blackness because I just appreciate the work ethic that it instilled in me, and being able to sit in a room and be the only black person and be confident in it. Right. Even with all this weight that we carry of having to speak for the black community, having to speak for the black male community, and initially it's a little nerve wracking, but once you get to a point of realizing that is that's a strength, that's a positive thing. I don't know that I would give that up.
I think I would agree with you on that, Dr. Aikins. And a matter of fact, we just had a higher position open within our county, and I applied for that position. As a matter of fact, the person that's retiring from the position after 30 years, a white lady, called me directly. Was like, "Hey, Felix, this is perfect for you. I put my name down. I want you to replace me." So I went through the whole application process, and literally this week got an email. "Hey, we got your application. We're excited. We're setting up interviews, but we want you to know that we're going to repost the position because we want a stronger applicant pool." How am I supposed to interpret that? If and especially one of the qualifications that you work for the county,
right,
and that you've been a case carrying social worker, which I meet all of those criteria. And so, how do you get past that, right? Or how do you not let that play in your mind? Because for a couple of days, I actually was very mad about that. And I'm like texting all my friends, like, read this email and interpret this. What do you think? What do you think they meant by this email, man? Because I think they're trying to shaft me, right? But like Dr. Aikins saying, is like, I wouldn't give up my blackness. I wouldn't give up the fact, that I had the pleasure of growing up with my great grandparents and my grandparents all in the same home, and just everything that they've instilled in me, and being proud of being a black man. Although, yes, I want to move up and I want to be up top, but I definitely would not give up my blackness for that.
Okay. I would say definitely different. Just referencing, like, I mean, you can't negate the fact of like 400 years plus of slavery, and then just generational wealth. That's one thing that I think often like sets us apart from a lot of our counterparts. Whereas, first generation college graduates, and it's like, you're, in a sense, for a lot of us, the first taste of money, like, oh, well, I'm making, this much amount of money. And your counterparts are like, oh, yeah, well, I went to college and, my mom and dad paid for it and everything is fine. It's like, well, I had to accumulate a little bit of debt to get to this point, So definitely just adding on to what you brothers said, definitely I would not change anything. I think that, the Black experience, it makes you stronger. It makes you, definitely have more insight into what's going on around you and just the world in general.
I think, when we talk about, deriving strength from our Black experience, I would always want to clarify, like, we're not saying strength in the sense of, oh, there's a complete absence of any weakness or vulnerability. It's just a sense of resilience. I feel like we carry a certain resilience with us. One of the things that I've often found, in particular, working in prison systems, is I feel honestly that sometimes when it comes to boys, especially Black boys, we are encouraged to be impervious to anything. Like, your son can fall and break an arm. Shake that off. Shake that off. We're gonna put some Robitussin on it, take it to the doctor. We'll be all right. It's this idea of like, don't cry under any circumstances. Don't do things that can be perceived as weak. Don't. It's like we're. I feel like sometimes we set our sons up for failure because we're encouraging them to be something that has no honest endpoint. So it's like, what is the endpoint to this? You know what I mean? It's like, I have to be impervious to everything. I can't have any emotion. But then when I'm angry all the time, everybody goes, well, what happened to little Bobby? Why Bobby always breaking windows and outside shooting at stuff? What is wrong with him? Well, you didn't let him get his emotions out in any other healthy way. So this is all he's got. And that's one of the biggest things I would encourage most parents nowadays. Like, it's okay to let your kids be in touch with what they're feeling. Let them feel something. I know Black households have this thing where it's like, you don't get to feel nothing until you pay some bills in the house. Your feelings don't matter until you pay a bill in my house. But, I mean, like, let your kids at least open that door for them to express to you what's going on. Because, as we talked about in the previous conversation, it's like you have, especially kids of color who are dealing with abuses of all kinds and in adverse situations, where it's like, if you were a little bit more inviting and allowing them to speak to you and not you talk at them, but actually letting them talk to you, you would have a more open relationship and you would have been able to cut off maybe some of these behaviors or stop some of the abuses as they were started. And so I feel like what can we do as leaders to encourage parents to have a more open relationship with their children?
I think for me, especially growing up in the home, with my grandfather who, he had a third grade education, but worked at the wood yard mill, and he was just tough, and he was just tough on us. And so for me, it's like now that I have this sense of, okay, you have to be able to express yourself. And I think when I talk specifically to my Black families, I'm just like, Mama, it's cool, right? Okay, we had this moment, but how can we put ourselves in a position where I am not knocking on your door again because Jamaal went to school and cussed out Miss Becky because of he wasn't able to really express himself at home, and she was just an easy target. And I also think being an example of that for my 12-year-old nephew, I think it's important for me to be vulnerable for him because his dad is tough, and my sister, women is women, so to speak. But I think it's good for him to see somebody that has those emotions and say it's okay to have those emotions, because I'd rather him do that than to go to school, cuss out Miss Becky, and then we have a whole nother problem.
I think what we're doing right now is going to just go so far for showing young Black men that it's okay to talk about emotions, because we have 4 intelligent Black brothers here right now talking about it and talking about our experience. And there's no heckling, there's no teasing, there's no reprimanding, there's nothing going on. And it's okay. And we are still all very secure in our masculinity. We're gonna, leave from this conversation still feeling good about ourselves. And, hopefully this is seen by thousands of people who can pass it on to a young Black male in their life, and they can see that 4 Black men from 4 different areas of the United States can come together and all say that it's okay to talk about these emotions. So again, Jamaal, I just want to say, thank you to you for having this forum and allowing us the opportunity to talk about it, because I just really, really think this is what we need, more of us coming together and talking about it and showing that it's okay.
Definitely. I mean, one of the biggest things for me, I'll say, is just building one another up. When I joined the fraternity, I did so because I felt like, man, I don't have big brothers. I didn't have I have an older brother, don't get me wrong, but he and I were not that close at the time. And so it's like I wanted brothers. I wanted and I never had a little brother. So that would be where Brother Paul comes in. Brother Paul was my first little brother in the fraternity. So it was like, having that type of, and I say mentorship goes both ways, because I learned from him and hopefully he's learned from me. But for me, the bigger thing has been, I wish more organizations encouraged men to go out, find someone that you mentor and that you allow to teach you things so that we can all move forward together. And I feel like, a lot of society has picked up this culture of I got mine, you better get it for yourself. But it's like, that doesn't benefit us as a whole. That's not going to be what clears out the prisons. That's not going to be what keeps the next brother from going out and doing something that's deleterious to his future. We have to be willing to mentor somebody, and we have to be willing to talk to somebody and go, look, this ain't it. I know you think this is it, but, look, the herking and jerking and the TikToking is only going to go so far. What you going to do when there's no more TikTok?
Them fan only pages is only gonna pay out for so long.
Look, I mean, your OnlyFans group is only gonna follow you for so long. You can only show that only so many times. So people are like, we've seen. Let it go.
But Definitely though, bro. Like just adding on to what you said, and one thing that really came to mind was with the mentoring piece, thinking in terms of like us as black men, oftentimes one thing I'll see is we're only stepping into a mentorship role when it's, oh man, he has a really good jump shot. Oh man, he's super fast. No, every black male, no matter in what capacity, needs that mentorship. You understand what I'm saying? And just showing them that success comes in so many different ways. Like, hey, I'm a teacher, but you know what? I'm doing this, that, and the third, and I was able to be successful and take care of my family in this way. Even though as a black man, you may have, your immediate family, your immediate children, it's nothing to take on another child and support that child and that family, financially, emotionally, just honestly thinking about the difference you can make within, 5, 10 years, a lifetime with that child.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When I was much younger, like right out of college, was teaching school actually in Memphis, and somehow I got this bright idea I was going to go be a big brother, big sister organization person. And so I became a big brother through that organization. And so the young man that I guess it's been like 15 years now, 16 years ago now. And so he's graduated high school, has gone to college, and is currently in college. But, every now and then I'll get that text, hey, everything is good, I'm good, or I can shoot him a text, do you need anything? And so that was just from, this bright idea of I'm going to go be a big brother. And I think if we had more brothers to do that, and like you said, let's not always just go for the jump shot and the fastest person on the field. Let's look, them young brothers. Like I look at my nephew. My nephew is in honors classes and all this now in junior high school and doing really well. Just to brag on him a little bit, but I appreciate the one black man, even though he has his mom and dad at home. And I always tell him, you got it better than me and your mama, because your mama and your daddy at home, boy. But but he has a mentor, and he's a black man and he can see like, hey, it's okay for somebody else to support you other than family. And I think we also have to do it. That's what I like about the Sigma Beta Club within Phi Beta Sigma, is that they are able to get with some of these young men and mentor them, not just because they're the best on the court or the fastest on the field. And I think that's important for us as well.
The representation is so important for our boys, especially, so that they can see that there are other options. There are other ways to get to success besides being a rapper or an athlete. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're skilled with your rhymes, wonderful. I mean, that's no shade on somebody who may want to be a rapper. But the thing is, how many people can rap?
Yeah.
And
how actually make it
exactly
to the point of making money.
Make it. Like that's a huge gap. But you may have other talents. And I really want more parents to encourage their kids to find those other talents. Everybody can do something. He may not be a rapper, but boy, if you give him math problems, he killing them. He may not be great at math, but when it comes down to being a thinker and being able to work through things, one of my littles is one of the most amazing thinkers that I have ever met in my life. Like when some of the questions that he will ask are so like, what year are you in right now? Because for some reason, you have just jumped ahead like 4 steps. Like, I know what you're getting at, so I want to know how you got there. That kind of thing. Encourage that in kids. And I find that it's sad to say this, but I've been in the grocery stores where kids will ask their parents questions. And they'll ask, and I mean, I'll be just by them on one aisle. And I know parents got a hard way to go. I'm not faulting parents, but yeah, your kids are asking 50 questions. That means they're inquisitive. They want to learn something. Mm-hmm. Stop telling them to shut up and don't ask you nothing else. Ask me something else. Ask me something else. We're going to give you leaving right now. Ask me one more question. Don't do that. Like, don't stifle their inquisitiveness, because you don't know who you have standing right beside you. This could be the person that cures cancer. This could be the person that is going to figure out how to get us out of coronavirus lockdown. Maybe they know something that we don't. Like, and I want more parents to understand that. Encourage that inquisitiveness, especially in your boys. Stop anticipate, oh, you don't play no football. Go out and go shoot a ball or something. That's not his thing. That's okay. Maybe, yeah, I'm not encouraging y'all to just let them sit there and play video games all day or sit on TikTok, whatever. But if you're noticing that they have a penchant for it and they're good at it, encourage that, whatever they're good at. One of the things I always tell people I'm so grateful for is my family was encouraging. Whatever it was, I could have said, tomorrow I'm going to the moon, and all they would have said was, you got it, and they're going to walk off. Like, maybe they're not going to invest money in my NASA training right now. But what they're not going to do is discourage me. And I think that's really a big thing for us. I feel like we, sometimes in our history as Black people, we've been so circumscribed and kept in so many boxes that we unintentionally do it to our kids. We unintentionally keep them in a box, and it's like, no, let them do their own thing, whatever that is. We talked a little bit earlier about, having these types of conversations to encourage our younger brothers to do something different. Is there anything else that we should be doing, I think, as Black men, to help create those opportunities and to create more dialogue around it, maybe?
I would say exposure. One thing I would say, growing up in a small town, I grew up in a little town, Philadelphia, Mississippi, and real small country, dusty town, so to speak. And but one thing my grandparents did was, so our church took trips every summer to some city somewhere to see some Black museum or or whatever it was. And we didn't have a lot of money, but I can guarantee you we were on that bus taking that trip. And so it was just exposure. So when it came time, to decide, Felix, what you gonna do? You either gonna work or you gonna go to school? And I said, well, I'm going to school. And they said, okay, we have never been there, but we'll help you get there. And so I think it's just exposure. I remember when I was teaching in Memphis, every Friday we would take newspapers to the recycling bin. And I had students who had never been out of North Memphis. I taught fifth grade. So they are 11, 12 years old and had never left North Memphis. And if you've ever been to Memphis, there's a park there called Shelby Farms. So we had to go past Shelby Farms. And these kids literally asked me, or was asking, are we still in Memphis? Yes, we're literally down the street. What are you talking about? And they had these kids are 12 years old and they didn't even know Shelby Farm existed. And so I know that's a small example, but I think if you start with exposure, that's definitely something I think we could do a better job at. And if no one's actually doing it, it definitely should be something that's done.
What about y'all brothers? What you think?
Good.
Definitely, I agree. And I was just going to add on as far as like the exposure piece. Definitely, like within your career, I think that one thing, I think in terms of like MJ and Chance, you all know, like my students and stuff like that, actually showing them how you got to the point where you're at and what you're doing. So as you like maneuver through your plan, showing them like, hey, this is investing. This is what I'm doing. Hey, this is why I'm putting my money over here. Actually, like, it's in a sense to some degree like a competition for everything that you show them. Understand that, like Jamaal said, the Hurricane and Jerkin and NBA Youngboy, you have to compete with that. So you can't be afraid. I feel like you can't be afraid to show them, hey, this is what I'm doing with my money, and kind of not stunting on them, but showing them like, hey, man, there's other ways to get money and be successful as a Black man. So that's kind of what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback off of both of those points, in psychology, we have this kind of tell, show, do concept where when we're teaching kids and the behaviors, we tell them how to do it, show them how to do it, then they do it, then you reinforce their use of that skill. So I think about it the same way. If we're wanting, young Black men to show up a certain way, wanting them to display a certain skill, tell them, okay, this is how you do it, model that for them. So show up a certain way and live that. And then once you see them doing that, reinforcing it with your acknowledgement and your praise and your attention to it.
I mean, I'll let this be our last quick talking point. I want to point out like the importance of mentorship also because of the prevalence of absentee fathers in the home. For the brothers who are out there who are making it and who are doing positive things, it's so important that you do take on that mentorship role, because as we're looking at our society as a whole, we're seeing a lot of absentee fathers. And so the mentorship thing doesn't stop at 12, 13, 14, 18, 21. That mentorship needs to continue like lifelong. Everybody needs somebody that they can look up to. Like, and I feel like for those of us who are blessed enough, I grew up with my mom and dad in the house. As I told people, I didn't realize how uncommon that was until I got older. When I would tell people, they'd be like, "Oh, well, who you going with, your grandma?" No, my mom and my daddy were in the house, and people are like, "Both of them, really?" It's like you don't realize how different, if you will, that is for our community. And it's kind of that idea of don't be afraid to stand in. Don't be afraid to step in and be that. I know some people are like, man, I got the money for that. Time don't cost you anything. And sometimes it's just a matter of you being a male figure in their life that they can talk to, that they can come to with certain questions and ask certain things too. So I want to say, like, I don't know if you brothers know of, like, I guess any programs or whatever that people can kind of get into. But one of the things I definitely want to say is for my absentee fathers, I don't care how you look at it, shame on you. Do better. Okay. But for those of us who are able to, definitely, making sure that you're stepping in where you can. But like I said, I don't know if y'all know of any programs that would be helpful in those areas, but
my mind goes to big brothers, big sisters.
Yeah. Big brother, big sister, and got to represent, especially for those younger brothers, you can always do Sigma Beta. And I mean, the Omega Psi Phi and Kappa Alpha Psi, they all have mentorship programs as well. But I certainly got to plug Sigma Beta Club, if nobody else. And I would even go so far, like, so being here in Colorado and my role within even just Phi Beta Sigma outside of what I do, what I get paid to do is, so I am the Western Region Director of Collegiate Affairs. And so I am connected with college students all over the West. And so just being able to talk to even those young men who are 19, 20, 21 years old, they even need mentorship. So if there are some brothers out here that's listening to this and you're close to a college campus and you can even connect with those brothers, even on the college campus. I know we focus a lot on our younger brothers, but even our college students, they need, somebody just to be there for them as well.
Brother Paul, what you got for him?
Definitely, I'd say here in New Orleans we have 1,000 Black men. That's an organization. But I think that Brother Moore, that was actually a really, really good point. We oftentimes focus in on the adolescents, but college, that is new territory for a lot of Black men. So it's important to understand just navigating that process, the pledging process, if you so choose to do that. Definitely. Great point.
So, final thoughts from everybody. Where are we going as Black men?
The moon.
That was hopeful. But that was
I definitely think it's positive trajectory, and whenever the topic of mental health and just emotional expression comes up, I think about Charlemagne the God, and this change that he has made in his personality and how he's shown up in books that he's written on, the struggles with his own mental health and making it not such a taboo topic. And again, with us coming together and talking about it and making it not such a bad thing to talk about. So I do think that we are going to get to a place to where it's going to be okay for us to show up and to express our emotions and to say that I have this going on, and to be able to reach out and say, hey, do you have a minute to talk? And, I think it's a beautiful thing what's happening right now.
Yeah, I would just say certainly transparency and just being authentic and being who you are. And sometimes I have to go to the jail depending on what the case is, and a lot of the younger brothers are like, man, you ain't had to deal with this. And I'm like, brother, first, I'm not from Colorado, so I did grow up in the hood, but don't let the glasses and the button-up shirt fool you. I just happened to make it, but this is how I made it. And so I think being transparent and being honest with when you speak to the young brothers or the brothers in general is just be your authentic self, and we'll certainly go places.
Paul, final thoughts.
I definitely say optimism. Thinking in terms of everyone in this room, we have, 4 Black men dedicated to the uplift of the Black community. So, on an individual basis, if we're all dedicated to, seeing young men do better, then, like Dr. Aikins said, honestly, let's go to the moon. So.
Literally.
After November 3rd.
What we gotta do is get away from these policemen here on Earth. That's why we hit for Bloom. Because I'm a Black man in this room, but for any policeman watching, I'm a white woman. Don't you know? No, but in general, though, I think the more we get leaders, men who aren't afraid to stand out front and be that that voice for the voiceless, and who are willing to say, as Dr. Aikins pointed out, like, I might have had a mental health issue, I might have gone through some things in my life, I've been to prison, I've been here or there or whatever. Just everybody owning their story and owning the fullness of their story. Like, don't try and make it something that is not, to blend in. Mm-hmm. Let kids know that they could be okay standing out. Like, maybe the reason why you don't fit in with this bunch is you were never meant to fit in with them in the first place. You're not like them. You're different, and that's okay. Like, it's all right to be whoever you are. And I realize, like, people don't understand, especially with kids, like, there are more ways to make $1 than just drugs and or show business. You got other options. You can go to school and make money legally. It's a blessing that the police don't have a reason to be at your door. There are other ways to do it. And I think, more conversations like this, more events where brothers are standing out front saying, look, I'm not an athlete, I'm not a musician, I'm not this or that, but I'm successful. Because maybe success for somebody is just, I have a nuclear family and we all together, we got a roof over our head, got food on the table. And that's okay. Like, success looks so different, person to person. And helping kids understand what their success should look like and what life can be for them as a Black man. Because, I don't care what Dr. A can say. Sometimes I'm tired of being Black, but it's all right. I'll be Black regardless. I want to thank these brothers again for joining me tonight and giving us the wealth of their experience. Dr. Jamarri Aikins, who's here for a second time. Yay! Brother Felix Moore, who's joining us. Brother Emmanuel Paul with us. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate you, brothers. And y'all stay tuned, because next week we have the state of the Black woman. So that should be interesting. I ain't gonna be there. I ain't gonna be nowhere around it. But they're gonna have that next week. So stay tuned. Thank y'all. Have a good one.
Thank you.